Was today a great day, a good day, an average day, or hopefully not a terrible day? Was the meeting that you had amazing, fruitful, beneficial, awkward, combative, or a frustrating, unproductive waste of time? And how do you know? Our magnificent lives are full of nouns and verbs, all of the stuff that we have and all of the things we do. We use adjectives, which are words that give a quality or meaning to our nouns, and we use adverbs, which are words that give a quality or meaning to our verbs. We do this so that we know where we're at, with everything and anything, moment by moment, if need be. We give meaning to all of the stuff that we have and all of the things that we do, so that we can gauge and represent how we feel about it. Where is it sitting in our very personal internal scale of good to bad? Now, the problem is that we don't always know with any sort of accuracy or even the required level of detail as to why we think it means what it means. A holiday weekend away is just a collection of actions and experiences. You left home, you drove to a destination, you stayed somewhere, camping, hotel, Airbnb, or maybe with friends. You did some stuff, and then you drove home again. If it was actually experienced like this, in a very dissociated, fact-based way, life would be pretty bland and probably very boring. This is not how we experience our lives and everything in it. Did you leave nice and early? Was the drive glorious, traffic-free and relaxing? Was the destination beautiful and tranquil? Were all of your activities whilst there fulfilling, life-enriching, and forever to be treasured memories? Now, here's the thing. Two people can go away on this very same holiday weekend. One could experience it as beautiful, restful, relaxing, and rejuvenating, whilst the other person could experience the exact same trip as boring, tedious, desolate, and a horrible waste of time and money. The meaning is always very personal to you. The words you choose are specifically chosen, usually unconsciously, to fit with the internal representation of the experience you think you had and what it means to you. And here's a quick note, though. Even if two people think something is great, it doesn't tell us that the value and meaning that they perceive inside of self are indeed the same thing. I think motorcycles are great because of the practical aspects they have for getting through traffic, ease of parking in town, and a sense of freedom, independence, and adventure. Yet someone else may also think motorcycles are great, but for completely different reasons. Maybe because they're fast, thrilling, and exciting. So if somebody was to come up to me and tell me that they also think motorcycles are great, I'm at risk of seeing in my mind a picture of them enjoying the practicality and freedom, where no, they are actually riding 170 miles an hour, adrenaline pumping, being chased by the police, and their hair on fire. Time, space, matter, and energy is the same for everyone, yet the meaning of it may be vastly different to everyone. Because it's noon, I have the whole afternoon still to go. But for someone else, because it's noon, they've already lost half the day. Adjective and adverb modifiers give us a fairly accurate insight into how a person is choosing to perceive any given experience. Now, day to day, when we're listening to people telling us about their stuff, what they did over the weekend, what their friend's partner, boss, or colleague did or said, there will be a representation of some kind of meaning. In listening effectively and paying close attention to the NLP presuppositions of adjective adverb modifiers, we will easily begin to get a flavor for and a gauge of whether the narrative they're sharing is in their experience and thinking a good thing or a bad thing. The more emotionally stimulated they are, or they maybe start to become, as they're telling the story, then the more exaggerated their descriptors will be. This is where you can begin to spot and take note of inappropriate, unwarranted, and at times completely irrational adjective and adverb modifiers. Emotional stimulation is very energetic and does need expression. They will have to validate the feeling in some way or another outside of self. This will drive them to explain it in such a way that will also get your buy-in and agreement. This helps them to create a much needed sense of consensus. This is a terrible thing. I know it to be a terrible thing because you also agree that it is indeed a terrible thing. Now, here are a few examples of the sort of things you might hear and be at risk of agreeing with and unintentionally validating. These may seem a bit exaggerated, but these are actual statements I've heard and dealt with in the past. I sat for hours in the most horrific traffic jam. Now, notice sat for hours. This is what's called time distortion, or could be just plain old exaggeration. In fact, it was just over 20 minutes. And it's fairly unwarranted to refer to any traffic jam as horrific, let alone most horrific. Soldiers in 1914 trying to survive in the trenches, that was horrific. A traffic jam can hardly compare to that. It truly was a dismal performance. Now, with this statement, dismal was a bit over the top. If you heard this, you would want to work out what dismal actually means. It's also interesting when you hear additional words that are designed to amplify whatever the negative word was. In this case, the use of the word truly, as if dismal isn't amped up enough, or there is some sort of non-true version of dismal that you could be confused by. Another example, I've just had the most catastrophic day at work. Wow, that must have been a pretty bad day. Again, you'd have to ask questions to better qualify and quantify what catastrophic actually means. This would require the how do you know it was catastrophic or in what way questions. Notice the use of the word most, as if catastrophic comes in various levels of intensity. In this particular case, I found out that an important delivery was late, and the person was worried and very much assuming that they were going to be judged or measured badly by their boss, even though at that stage nothing had actually been said to them. Just note when listening that emotional stimulation and extreme adjective adverb modifiers very much go together. You very rarely get one without the other. What this means is the picture inside the person's mind and the emotions it's stimulating will probably be far more intense than the actual event, experience, or interaction would truly warrant. Set up a wee alarm bell in your ear that will trigger you to listen very closely to the structure being delivered when you hear big, bold, adjective adverb modifiers being used. They are a key to maintaining emotional intensity of the story being told. Now, as with all NLP presuppositions, we can very much utilize adjectives and adverb modifiers to positively flavor all that we want to communicate. This helps us to positively influence the picture that the listener will be more likely to see in their mind as we speak. This increases the likelihood of them accepting unconsciously the meaning we would like their reality to have. As with all NLP language skills, for them to be predictably effective, it has to be done with aligned intent and integrity. It will be unconsciously flawed if there is another motive, as there is a very good chance that the conscious aspects of what would ultimately be, let's say, manipulation, will cause a person to use words that are simply not comfortable or acceptable in way of a fit for the listener or the context. It will come across as insincere because it is insincere. To do this well, you have to have listened actively, paying very close attention to the other person's go-to and comfortable level of adjective adverb modifiers. If they like to talk in terms of good, effective, satisfactory, pleased, then you will be getting it horribly wrong if you tell them it's amazing, fantastic, and awesome. For the listener, this will sound exactly what it is, exaggerated and to them contextually inappropriate. It will either just bounce off them or have the actual opposite effect and influence them to question the overall validity of what you're saying. Over-egging the pudding destroys the flavor of the pudding. You will also want to pay close attention to the starting point. If the result or outcome is currently bad, you can't just change the perception of it by saying that it's good. You would have to come in at a softer version of the bad to have any chance of gaining agreement. Think like stepping stones or like chaining anchors. From a starting point of terrible, will the other person be willing to follow you to, say, less than ideal? And then from there, might they go to, actually better than expected? And ultimately, with some positive changes, will they be willing to accept that it's ultimately good? I recently had an interesting interaction with a marketing manager that had spent $500 on a LinkedIn campaign. Now, that in of itself wasn't entirely true, as they had also spent an additional $1,500 on artwork and setup. The results were poor at best. I suppose it was decent enough engagement, but ultimately only 3 leads that at the time of the conversation hadn't even yet been qualified. The market manager then presented the results to me and kept referring to the results as amazing, and the engagement was fantastic. I advised them to dial down the superlatives and talk more in practical stats when presenting to the senior management team. They didn't, which was a career-limiting decision on their part. In every interaction, someone is selling and someone is buying. First, we want to be very aware of what role is going to be the most influential and effective for us to take within the interaction, because to effectively sell, we may want to first be buying. Now, it makes perfect sense that if we're selling a widget, this could be a product, a service, an outcome, a concept, and an idea. We'll get far better results if we can paint a compelling picture for the listener that makes the metaphoric widget a must-have. I often have salespeople saying they're going to send a proposal, a quote, or that they want to have a meeting or give a presentation. And they pretty much miss the massive opportunity to positively flavor the proposal, the quote, the meeting, and the presentation. They carelessly leave it up to the listener to see their own representation, which could be positive or could easily be negative of what each of these words means to them, the listener. Maybe in their recent experience of presentations, it's been boring and a massive waste of time. Because the only word that was used was presentation, they will simply see only what that word means to them. To be a truly advanced linguistic influencer, you really will want to train yourself to use positive, by the way, appropriate and acceptable, words to give meaning to all that you're selling. You will want to be sending them through a highly relevant, exciting proposal, a carefully curated competitive quote. You'll be wanting to have a mutually beneficial meeting, whilst looking to deliver a clear, informative, and inspiring presentation. I don't just train language skills. I train advanced, potent, powerful, and highly influential language skills. So do like and subscribe to ensure that you get access to even more of these powerful, advanced linguistic influencing skills that I'll be teaching. Now, in our next video, we'll go through in detail the powerful concept of inclusive and exclusive. This is the NLP presuppositional structure of a double bind. I very much look forward to sharing so much more with you as we learn, evolve, and create positive change together.